Number 4 then, from the 2006 Higher Maths paper 2, circles. Here's the equation of two circles in the two different forms. Determine the radius of the larger circle, given that the circles have got the same centre. Well, all the information is given here in this one, so straight away with this one I can state the centre. The centre's given by these two numbers at the end, the 3 and the 4, whatever's been subtracted. So the centre of that circle is 3, 4, which means the centre of this circle is also 3, 4, and that's the first mark. So this means that the centre of this circle is also 3, 4, and that's what will let me figure out what k is. Now there are two ways you can do it. The simple way would be just to say, well, these are the two terms that give you the centre. If you know these two terms, you would change their signs and half them, and that'd be the centre, which means for this circle, its centre, we'll call that centre 1, call that centre 2, is given by change the sign, makes it k, half it, k upon 2. Change the sign, makes it 8, half it, 4. That means if C1 equals C2, then k upon 2, the x coordinate, must be 3. And there obviously 4 is equal to 4, in which case k is equal to 6. Now that's the second mark. Now there is another way you could do it, a much longer way that hopefully you wouldn't even consider, which is to compare the two equations if they were in the same form. In other words, expanding this and then comparing the two terms that give the centre with the two terms that give the centre there. So that expanding this would be square the first, twice the product, so minus 6x, square the last 9. Same for this one, square the first, twice the product, minus 8y plus 16 equals 25. Now, strictly speaking, I don't need to tidy up these numbers because I can see the two terms that give the centre. It's these two here. I'll finish it off anyway. So it's x squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 8y, and that's 25, take away 25, so that in fact comes to 0. Now you can compare the terms together, the x term with the x term, and from the x terms, we've got negative kx equals negative 6x. You've got negative k equals negative 6, which means k equals 6. So that would be the mark for k if you did it by this method. But you wouldn't. Even here you could get away just with writing k upon 2 equals 3, so k is 6. Now, who's got the bigger radius? Well, in this circle here, the radius is stated by the term at the end. So for radius 1 squared, that would be 25. So its radius is 5. That gets you a mark. Now to get the radius of this one, I know the formula involves this number at the end, but I know that's going to be a negative 12. I don't really need to write it all out, but I'll write it all out anyway. What is this now that I know that k is 6? So that second circle is x squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 8y minus 12 equals 0. And then from that I can say that means that second radius is going to be the square root of, then you can either think of f's and g's and c's if you like, but strictly it's just the centre squared minus the number at the end. So the centre squared is 3, 4. 3 squared plus 4 squared minus the number at the end, which is a negative 12. Now strictly speaking, according to the marking scheme, that's the fourth mark. I'm not even finishing it off. But I'll finish it off anyway. You'd have to be able to compare them to know which one was the bigger, because it's the bigger answer you've got to state in the end. So that's 9, 25 and a 12 is 37. That's root 37, so there's not much I can do with that. Now the last mark's for saying which is bigger. That means you'll have to make a comparison first. Which is bigger out of them? If you simply write, according to the marking scheme, root 37 is greater than 5, because you know it is, maybe because it's paper 2, and you know that's going to be 6 point something. Strictly speaking, in the marking scheme, that gives you the last mark, because you've indicated that root 37 is a bigger radius. But I'd be tempted to finish it off with a statement. Root 37 is greater than 5, which means the second circle has the greater radius of root 37, and put the last mark there. Though in the marking scheme you get away with that mark being there. One last little bit. This comparison business about which of these numbers is bigger. If you want to compare two numbers, they have to be in the same form. Well, that's a root and that's not. So either you'd have to write that as root 25, or just write this instead. If you want to compare two numbers, compare their squares. R2 squared is 37. R1 squared is 25. If that square is bigger than that square, then that number is bigger than that number. I would have written that down, which means that R2 is greater than R1, which means that the second circle's got the greater radius. Still, that's all they wanted.